She humiliated me in Paris, but I made the whole city remember my name. The night she humiliated me in Paris still burns like fire under my skin. I remember the crowd, the music, and the laughter echoing off the marble walls of that luxury hall near Champs-Élysées. I had flown across the ocean to surprise her, my girlfriend of 3 years, Madison Clark, a fashion model who always said Paris was her dream. I never knew I'd land in that dream just to watch it shatter me into pieces. She didn't just walk away that night. She walked over my pride in front of hundreds of people. But that humiliation became the reason the city that laughed at me once ended up whispering my name with respect. I was 30 then, an ordinary guy from Boston with a small architecture startup, struggling to get noticed. Madison and I had met during a shoot in New York. She loved my simplicity and I adored her ambition. When she left for Paris for her big modeling contract, I promised to visit her once my company's first project was complete. I worked day and night, skipped meals, barely slept, just so I could afford that surprise trip to Paris. I bought her favorite perfume, a custom gold bracelet with her initials and a promise ring. I thought love could be built on loyalty and effort, but Paris taught me it could also be destroyed in a minute of laughter. I reached her show unannounced with her best friend Emma's help. The event was a high-profile launch, cameras flashing, champagne flowing, fashion elites everywhere. When Madison walked the runway, she was breathtaking. My heart beat faster. I wanted to wait till the show ended, then kneel before her and propose. But fate had its own script. During the after-party, she stood with a tall French designer, Lucas Duval, laughing too loudly, touching his arm too comfortably. I waited for her to notice me, to smile, to say, "You came." But when she finally saw me, her smile froze, and then she said something that split my soul. "Oh, this is Tyler," she said, turning to Lucas. "He's just a friend from back home who still thinks we're something." The laughter that followed was like knives. Lucas shook my hand with a smirk, the kind rich men wear when they think they've won something. Madison whispered something to him and they both laughed again. I stood there holding the ring box in my palm while her friend stared like I was a clown who had wandered into the wrong show. Cameras clicked, capturing my embarrassment. I dropped the ring, turned around and walked out. My dreams, my love, my dignity, all left behind under those flashing Paris lights. For days, I locked myself in a cheap hotel room near Montmartre. I drank coffee instead of sleep and stared at the Eiffel Tower from my window like it was mocking me. Every word she said replayed in my head. Just a friend. That line broke me, but also built something inside me, rage with direction. I decided Paris would not remember me as the fool who got humiliated by a model. Paris would remember me as the man who rose from ashes and turned humiliation into legacy. I had $12,000 left in my account and a mind full of designs. So I started walking, observing the city's architecture, bridges, old buildings, forgotten alleys. I drew sketches all day, talked to local cafe owners, and offered to redesign their shops for free, just for exposure. One cafe owner, an old man named Henry, gave me my first chance. His cafe near Rue de Rivoli was falling apart. I redesigned it into a cozy, artistic space using nothing but recycled wood and natural light. Within weeks, his cafe became a viral sensation on social media. People started asking who designed it. "Some American guy named Tyler," Henry said. "That's how it started." Soon I got more offers, boutiques, small bars, art studios. I worked like a man possessed. My heartbreak had turned into fuel. I didn't party, didn't rest, didn't call home. I wanted Paris to speak my name, and it slowly did. My designs became known for their emotion, spaces that felt alive, warm, and honest. A year later, I was featured in a local magazine. They called me the American dreamer of Paris. Irony, right? The same city that mocked me was now writing about me. Then one evening, as I was presenting a new design for a high-end hotel lobby, she walked in. Madison Clark, the woman who once crushed me. She looked shocked to see me standing there in a tailored suit, confidently explaining my vision to a room full of investors. The man beside her, Lucas, was now a fading shadow of the past. His brand was struggling. She tried to smile, but her eyes told another story, regret. I didn't look away. I finished my presentation, received applause, and shook hands with the investors. When the meeting ended, Madison approached me. "Tyler," she said softly, "you look different." I smiled. I guess Paris changes people. She bit her lip, unsure what to say next. "I heard your work is everywhere now. I'm proud of you." I looked at her the way one looks at a painting that used to mean something but no longer stirs emotion. "You should be. You gave me the reason." Her eyes filled with guilt. "I was young, stupid, trying to fit in. I didn't mean to hurt you." I leaned closer and whispered, "You didn't hurt me, Madison. You created me." That night I walked by the Seine River, smiling to myself. Revenge didn't have to be loud or violent. Sometimes it was quiet success echoing through the same streets where you once stood broken. A month later, Paris Fashion Week invited me to design their main stage, the same stage where she had humiliated me 2 years earlier. I accepted. I spent nights perfecting the design, a glass structure that reflected the city's lights like stars trapped in crystal. On the opening night, thousands gathered. Celebrities, designers, influencers, all under the roof I created. Madison was there too, modeling again, walking across the stage I built. When she paused mid-runway, her eyes met mine in the crowd. Cameras flashed just like that night years ago. But this time I wasn't the humiliated one, I was the headline. The host announced, "Stage designed by American architect Tyler Miller." The applause shook the hall. Madison's face froze for a second before she smiled for the cameras. I could see her pride mixed with pain. That was my moment. After the event, reporters surrounded me, asking about my journey. I said, "Paris taught me something. When someone laughs at your fall, don't argue. Build your wings quietly and fly above them so high that they have to look up to see you." The quote went viral overnight. Within weeks, I was offered contracts across Europe. My name became a symbol of resilience. But I wasn't done. The final act of my silent revenge came when I bought the lease of the same building where she had humiliated me, the old event hall near Champs-Élysées. It had gone bankrupt and was up for sale. I turned it into Atelier Miller, a luxury art and architecture studio. The launch party invitation list included Paris's elite, and yes, Madison Clark. When she walked in, the place glowed with elegance. My designs filled every corner with light and life. She came up to me and whispered, "You've made Paris yours." I looked around and said, "No, Madison, you made me do it." That night, as I stood on the balcony overlooking the city, I thought of that boy who once stood humiliated in this same place. He was gone. In his place stood a man who turned heartbreak into legacy. The same Paris that once laughed at me now celebrated me. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting back. It's about becoming everything they said you couldn't. In the years that followed, the world began to know me not just as Tyler Miller, the architect from Boston, but as the man who changed Paris's skyline. My work expanded across continents, Dubai, Milan, Singapore, but Paris always stayed closest to my heart. Every corner of that city carried a shadow of my story, a whisper of my pain, and the echo of my triumph. Whenever I walked past the old event hall where she humiliated me, I felt nothing but gratitude. That place had once been the graveyard of my pride, but now it stood tall as the monument of my rebirth. My name, Atelier Miller, glowed on its glass walls in golden light every night, visible from half a mile away. It wasn't just a nameplate. It was a statement to every dreamer who had ever been broken, laughed at, or abandoned. You can rebuild yourself until even your ruins become art. One evening, while I was attending a charity gala for young designers, a journalist approached me. "Mr. Miller," she said, "everyone knows your story, but what changed you the most, the success or the pain?" I thought for a second and answered, "The silence between them." Because it was in that silence, the nights of heartbreak, the mornings of doubt, the quiet hours sketching alone, that I found my real strength. Revenge had started the journey, but peace finished it. That night after the gala, I returned to my penthouse overlooking the Seine. The city shimmered beneath the stars, and my reflection in the glass looked older now, calmer, wiser. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and smiled. I wasn't chasing her memory anymore. I was living beyond it. Still, life has a strange way of bringing ghosts back. One afternoon, my assistant came running into my office saying, "Sir, someone left a letter for you." It was handwritten, no name, just an address from Nice. Inside was a note. "You once told me that when someone laughs at your fall, build your wings quietly. I never forgot that. I started again too. I'm opening a small modeling school for girls who come to Paris with dreams. Thank you for teaching me what real strength is. M." I folded the letter, smiled, and placed it in my drawer. Maybe it was Madison, maybe not, but it didn't matter. The circle was complete. From that day on, I began writing my memoir, not for fame, but for truth. I titled it "She Humiliated Me in Paris," but I made the whole city remember my name. It wasn't a book of revenge. It was a story of transformation. How one man's heartbreak became his blueprint for greatness. The book went on to become a bestseller across Europe. It was translated into 12 languages. But the real victory was when young architects from around the world wrote to me saying, "Your story made me believe again." One morning, as I was signing copies at a bookstore near the Louvre, I saw a young couple standing in line. The woman whispered to her partner, "That's him, the man who turned his humiliation into history." They looked at me with admiration, not pity. That's when I realized I had achieved the ultimate revenge, not by proving her wrong, but by becoming the story that inspired others to rise. I often visit the same bridge where I once stood broken, staring at the cold waters of the Seine. Now, whenever I look down, I see the reflection of a man who fought his pain with purpose. I whisper to myself, "You did it, Tyler. You made Paris remember you." Sometimes tourists recognize me and ask for photos. They say things like, "Your designs feel alive," or "You made the city more human." I smile and reply, because they were built from real pain. Years later, when I was invited to lecture at the Sorbonne University, I ended my speech with one line that defined everything I'd lived. Never seek revenge through anger, seek it through excellence. Because success, when born from heartbreak, shines brighter than any spotlight. The students stood and applauded. Some had tears in their eyes. That night, walking home through the streets of Paris, I realized the city wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been broken and rebuilt themselves. The skyline glowed like gold. The Eiffel Tower blinked in rhythm with my heartbeat, and the wind carried whispers of my name. Not because I was famous, but because I had turned my scars into art. And if someday, when I'm gone, people look at the bridges, cafes, and towers I designed and say, "A man named Tyler built this," that will be enough. Because I'll know that long after I'm gone, my revenge will still stand tall in the heart of the city that once laughed at me. She humiliated me in Paris, but now, even